This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the meeting of November 2022 to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's meeting, we welcome.
Eric, can you hit that little black button on the top? Yep, there you go.
Okay, now we're live.
So, tonight's meeting, we have Finance and IT Director Tim Pearson with us to talk about the setting of the 2023 tax rate.
22.
2022.
Right. So, thank you. The reason for this meeting is to explain where we are with the tax rate and how dire it is that we take some action so that once DRA is prepared to set the rate, that we're able to act on it. And there have been delays, numerous delays in this process. Normally we would set the rate in mid to late October, and here we are almost at the end of November. And at risk of not getting tax bills out where they're due before the end of the year. And it's going to put a considerable strain on the staff here. So the delays have been everywhere from the school system, new personnel, reporting having to be corrected, delays with that, to the fire district special meeting, to now a reporting requirement of the water district, which has no bearing on our tax rate, but still DRA will not allow it moving forward to set a rate until that is completed. So that along with the possibly the fire district apportionment is what we're waiting on. I would expect these would be completed sometime tomorrow morning. So the goal tonight would be, if the board is in agreement with some parameters that I'd like to set, for you to approve me to set the rate, provided it does not exceed a certain amount of fund balance used and it does not exceed a certain amount on the tax rate, that I will do my best to work out.
Is that legal?
Yes,
We can put
yes.
somebody else to be the one who sets.
You have done this in the past. Yes, you have.
Call that, but okey doke.
Yep. You.
Just want to make sure.
I've given you parameters, and you've set those to where I can go ahead then with your approval.
Well, I have utter faith in financial literacy.
Well, thank you. So,
It's John.
Oh.
He's away, but he'd like to be connected somehow. How can he be connected?
he could call in, or we could just put him on speakerphone.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Speakerphone would be the easiest at this point.
I'll put you on speakerphone, John. Can you hear us?
Hi, John. So I was just explaining how the delays that have led up to where we are right now, and we are closer, but we're not at the point where we could set the rate tonight. But what I was recommending was that that you set a not to exceed figure for use of fund balance and a not to exceed figure for an increase in the tax rate. And what I've handed out is a worksheet, and I think I had mentioned at the meeting, your last notice meeting, that that I didn't feel comfortable with the school numbers at that point, and I've worked that out now and have those figures from the school, from DRA actually, for the school, and that was like the biggest piece of the puzzle I was missing. So if we were to do nothing based on our total appropriations, net revenues, war service credits, overlay, all of that, our tax rate would be, I believe it was 1907. And unfortunately, I didn't put it on this particular sheet. But as I've told you before, we're looking to end the year somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 of available budget. And in fact, I could tell you what that number is. We're looking to add about 400,000 to 500,000 of available budget to our fund balance at the end of the year of money that's left over, primarily because of the issues of hiring, which I've detailed before. So, in any event, if and I'll just give some overall numbers. Last year, our total tax rate was 1853. And if we were to use $345,000 of fund balance, that would bring us to the same number of $18.53. So here we go. I can tell you what it would have been without any fund balance. Second. So 1906 without use of any fund balance. That was close. So in any event, what I've outlined is anywhere from $100,000 in $50,000 increments up to $300,000, which would bring it to $1860 per thousand. Again, last year was $1853. The monies that we're going to have left over at the end of the year, we will have to reduce that budget by the amount of encumbrances that we might have. So far, those are identified as the chimney work that needs to be done, the roof work. That's about 50,000 between those two, the last I saw. And then whether the board wants to act on the gun sites and IMC mobile, that's probably about another 25,000. So you're looking at about 75,000 of encumbrances. So we're that at a 450 level, coming in between that 400,000 and 500,000 at the end of the year of available budget. Take away 75,000 of encumbrances, we'd be looking at 375,000 available to go into replenish our fund balance. So I feel very comfortable in saying that if the board were to use $345,000 to keep the tax rate the same year to year, it would not significantly impact our fund balance, available fund balance.
Yeah, and how would that affect what we contribute this year to what we might have available for contributing next year?
So what that would essentially mean is that we would have to have better than 450,000 if the board encumbered a full 75,000 this year. That would mean that we would have to have more than 450,000 left over at the end of the year to put any money over and above what you might use for the tax rate into fund balance. So in any case, let me correct that. I guess there'd be about $30,000 to $40,000. The difference between the whatever you assign here, 345 and say 375. So roughly $30,000. Current fund balance is it's just under $1 million, about $995,000.
And that puts us in good graces with DRA.
It does. So we're I can tell you that, and it would be about so using 345,000, we would be replenishing at least that much. And I can tell you that their parameter last year, I know I have it here. One second. Here it is. To their maximum retained 17% would be $2 million. Their lowest 5% retained, which is their minimum recommended, would be $615,000. 8% would be $985,000. So it would be a little over 8% retained balance of our operating budget. So typically, we've been on the lower end of the scale. This is a little better than where we have historically been. So my question would be that I think when looking at this year and how much was raised or is being raised in taxation and how much we've spent, that it would be appropriate to use the amount of money required to bring the rate to the same as last year. I don't think it's a good idea to go less than last year's rate because that sets the wrong expectation, I think. But it doesn't mean that you have to be more than. But what I'd be looking for the board to do is two things tonight, if you're in agreement, is to permit me to have say a 20-cent buffer to that 1853. So say up to 1875 on that. So that's 22 cents. And no more than $400,000 of fund balance. And the only caveat is the apportionment to the fire district. They were still working on it, DRA, and that's management that does that, and they had not posted that as of this afternoon, and that could change some. It could actually come down a little bit, but so the parameters would be no less than 1853 per thousand, no greater than 1875, and no use of fund balance greater than $400,000. And if for any reason any of those parameters aren't met, then I would require a meeting.
Can I ask a question on this one? Weren't we supposed to get some school funding back?
There was 1.619 million that came back to the towns through school funding. The town of Northfield is actually seeing about a $1.2 million increase in their school tax this year. We're seeing about a $300,000 increase. You have to remember last year we saw a $3 million, and I'm talking about all three towns, $3 million was returned last year. So there's not a full $3 million coming back this year. And so our portion roughly was maybe 250 to 350, somewhere in that neighborhood of an increase.
We can't use that to offset here, can we?
It's already built into the school numbers.
Okay.
It's already built in. So what you see here is net of the money that they've returned, and
The local.
for the local, and that's correct. And yes,
If they didn't return that money, what would it be?
much higher. So the way the school tax works, the state school, there's a portion of the state school tax that's never sent to the state. It's considered state money, but it's retained locally. So they call it locally retained. And then there's a grant, and then we receive part of that grant that's paid directly to the school from the state. So when you see the state school amount, state education, this is typically the local effort for the state, not the grant. So, the only reason why I suggested a little bit of buffer on the tax rate and a little bit more on the fund balance, other than what I had mentioned here, was just in the event that that I'm a little low. I don't think I am, but it could happen. And but if it really comes down to the priority. Do you want to return the majority of the money that we raised and appropriated but could not spend this year? That'd be the question. That we couldn't hire the personnel. We had personnel changes, that sort of thing. So, and if that's the case, 1853 should be the floor. You could make the high end 1863 if you wanted, and no more than 350. But what I would request is just something so that if this opens up tomorrow morning, then I can go ahead and finalize the rate and we can have our assessor prepare the warrant. And this would be the second portion of a motion tonight, which would be to sign the warrant once it's available, so that you don't have to have a special meeting to sign it. That way you can come in, or it can be posted for your signatures. So then the tax collector can get to work. But before that, we're kind of stuck. And if the bills aren't out by Tuesday in the mail, next Tuesday in the mail, they won't be able to be due this year. So that's what we're running up against. Everything else has to work like clockwork. And if it weren't for the holiday, I don't think we'd be having this discussion right now. We could wait, a day or two to get the final rate.
I have one more question. As for people funding their tax accounts for their mortgage, do you know the formula that they do for doing that? Would this if we increase the local, would it make people upside down on their tax contributions to their mortgages? You know, they figure that in there?
Well,
Yes, it does.
if what by using fund balance?
No, what it was, people, so somebody who has a mortgage and they're taking out their taxes.
Right.
Escrow.
If they have, if they're upside down on that and the taxes are higher than what they've been contributing for the year, they'd have to chip in that extra amount.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. And generally what banks do is they project out what the increase was, and they project out that increase, and then they divide it by so many months. And so they don't hit people generally in one big fell swoop, but they increase it more than it would have to be to protect themselves. But really, I think the risk here is if the bills are due in January, that's even worse for escrow holders. People could pay their tax bills early, but if they're escrowed and it goes to the escrow company, they're not going to pay them until they get a bill, and that means that people that have escrow accounts aren't going to have their, I think it's entirely possible, it could be a problem for people with their taxes. So that's why the urgency to try to get this due before the end of the year. So the two things that and you don't have to act on either one of these tonight. I mean, if you decide that you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. But it will mean you'll need to have another emergency meeting, and we just don't know if that's going to be. That could be tomorrow. That could be Wednesday. DRA was very non-committal, said up to 2 days. But I have called the sources that I know, and it seems like there's a good possibility it could be tomorrow morning. So
I really would like the monies to go back to the people if we didn't spend it. I'm adamant about that. However, I trust you. I would really like to see it the 1853. So if it takes us to 345, then I'm okay with that. But you would like a buffer in there, so I'm okay with that.
a little buffer, yeah. And I couldn't even get them to give us the preliminary rate today. It was just so incredibly frustrating. It was not a good day for me. So, and I'm usually very cool about things, but this is just really outrageous. The inflexibility and the lack of cooperation to get this done by all the parties that needed to act on it. And I'll share with the board another time the real monkey wrench, but it's just unfortunate that there are these difficulties between what should be cooperative groups. So, in any event, so those would be the two things. So there'd be a motion for some type of parameters, and then there'd be a motion to sign the warrant once it's prepared, so that you can just come in and sign.
Don't we have to motion the fund balance as well?
Yes, that'd be part and parcel of, that no less than, so what I would recommend is that you, move that, that you allow the finance director to, set a tax rate using up to, say, $375,000 of fund balance with, provided the rate is no lower than $18.53 and no higher than $18.75.
So moved.
Second, or is that second? I don't know.
Motion and second, discussion.
I would like to amend the motion. My amendment is to set the upper parameter at 1863. Okay, that went nowhere.
I think people were thinking.
Oh,
So instead of the 1875,
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I'll do my best.
Motion and a second on the amendment, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Amen.
The
Amendment.
amendment to the motion, and please indicate by saying aye.
aye.
All right, so now the amendment becomes the motion.
yeah.
All those, any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to agree, how do I put this exactly? For the Board of Selectmen to sign the warrant when it becomes available.
Second, motion and second, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes.
Is that a wet signature or is that electronic?
I'm not sure. I'm not certain on that, but that was it.
That's something that Lauren has to draw up, correct?
She does, yeah. And there's some adjustments that are typically made if there are any last minute changes to addresses or what have you before the warrant is produced. But then I can't remember if we have done that electronically before. I don't think we have. I think it probably does need to be a wet signature. So Gail or someone will alert you as to when that's available, Jeannie. So great. That's all I had.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is
Aye.
adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.
Adjourn.